Imagine for a moment that the medicine you took to stay healthy, the shot you were told would protect you and your community, could actually be making you more susceptible to getting sick. It sounds like something from a dystopian novel, but according to a brand new, peer-reviewed scientific study on COVID-19 boosters, this unsettling possibility is now a matter of scientific record. It's a finding so counterintuitive, so contrary to the narrative we've been hearing for years, that it demands our full attention. This bombshell report, published in the highly respected Nature journal Communications Medicine, presents stark evidence suggesting that with each dose of an mRNA booster, an individual's risk of developing what doctors call an influenza-like illness may not decrease, but in fact significantly increase. And before you dismiss this as a one-off fluke, understand this. This new data from Switzerland provides powerful, independent confirmation for earlier research from the world-renowned Cleveland Clinic, which stumbled upon a disturbingly similar pattern among its own 51,000 employees. This isn't just a single data point, it's a trend that researchers can no longer ignore. In this in-depth analysis, we are going to dissect the explosive findings of this new Swiss study. What exactly did the researchers discover in the day-to-day lives of over 1,700 healthcare workers? And why are experts insisting that the methodology of this study makes its conclusions particularly difficult to refute? Then, we will pivot to the corridors of power in Washington, D.C., where a political firestorm is brewing. We'll uncover how the federal government has been forced to hastily resurrect a long-dormant vaccine safety task force, a move that appears to be a direct response to a major lawsuit backed by one of the most prominent vaccine skeptics in the world, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We'll expose the timeline that suggests this wasn't a proactive measure, but a last-minute scramble to avoid a legal showdown. And finally, we will scrutinize the official response from the nation's top health officials, a response that seems caught in a dizzying spiral of contradictions, praising the very technology it now admits we don't fully understand. The question we must ask is this: are we witnessing the slow, painful unraveling of the official pandemic narrative? Stick with us as we search for the truth. Let's dive into the specifics of the SURPRISE study, a name that has proven to be incredibly fitting. This wasn't a theoretical model, it was a real-world investigation. Researchers in Switzerland meticulously tracked 1,745 healthcare professionals over a period of high COVID transmission, stretching from October of 2023 to May of 2024. The subjects were not the most vulnerable in society. The report describes them as young to middle-aged, healthy individuals, with a median age of just 46 and predominantly female at 82%. This is the very demographic often considered low risk. Every week, these participants diligently reported any new symptoms they experienced from a list of 22 respiratory, gastrointestinal, and general ailments. They also reported any sick days they had to take. The results, when the data was compiled, were nothing short of shocking. The study concluded that healthcare workers who had received a single COVID booster were a staggering 56% more likely to report suffering from an influenza-like illness compared to their unvaccinated colleagues. For those who had taken 2 or more boosters, the risk didn't go down. It soared even higher, to 70% more likely. The researchers themselves did not mince words, stating in their conclusion, "These findings suggest that COVID-19 boosters may not offer clear short-term benefits in a post-pandemic setting and may even increase short-term illness risk. This leads them to question whether routinely boosting this healthy, low-risk group can even clear a basic risk-benefit threshold." But here's the detail that provides the smoking gun, according to critics of the vaccination campaigns, including former New York Times reporter Alex Berenson. The study found a time-dependent effect. The researchers noted the association is stronger with a more recent timing of the vaccination. This means the increased risk of illness was most pronounced right after someone got the jab, and then it gradually decreased over time. Berenson argues this is a critical piece of the puzzle. It strongly suggests a causal link, providing, in his words, further evidence the shots themselves, not some hidden statistical factor, are increasing it. Because the study was so granular, collecting data week after week and nailing down the exact dates of inoculation, it becomes much more challenging for critics to simply blame the results on other lifestyle factors or healthy user bias. Now, in science, replication is key. A single study, no matter how well conducted, can sometimes be an outlier. But the Swiss findings do not stand alone. They serve as a powerful echo of a massive study conducted in 2022 by the esteemed Cleveland Clinic. That research, which analyzed data from over 51,000 of its own employees, unexpectedly unearthed a direct correlation between the number of vaccine doses and the risk of contracting COVID-19. The report noted an association of increased risk of COVID-19 with higher numbers of prior mRNA vaccine doses. This finding was so controversial and counterintuitive at the height of the pandemic that many tried to explain it away. However, with this new Swiss data now on the table, the Cleveland Clinic's original discovery looks less like an anomaly and more like a crucial early warning. But the plot thickens. The Swiss study also examined the traditional seasonal flu shot and, in this case, found a protective effect. Those who got it were less likely to report influenza-like symptoms. This seems like a clear win for traditional vaccines. But hold on, because the science here is also fiercely debated. Another, even larger Cleveland Clinic study, published just this spring of 2024, looked at the most recent flu vaccine formulation and came to the exact opposite conclusion. It found that for the 2023 to 2024 season, getting the flu shot made a person substantially more likely to get infected with the flu than someone who wasn't vaccinated at all. The article rightfully notes that flu vaccine effectiveness can swing wildly from year to year, but this clash of findings between major studies underscores just how unsettled the science really is, and how much we still have to learn about how our immune systems interact with these interventions. It's a lot to process: conflicting studies, challenging data, and a narrative that seems to be changing by the month. If you find this kind of detailed scientific breakdown essential for making sense of the world, please take a moment to hit that like button. It's a small click for you, but it's a huge signal to us that this is the kind of content you want to see more of. While these scientific debates are raging in medical journals, a political drama with equally high stakes is erupting in Washington. With almost no warning, the Department of Health and Human Services, the massive federal agency overseeing the nation's health, announced it was bringing back the Task Force on Safer Childhood Vaccines. To understand the significance of this, you need to know the history. This isn't a new committee created in response to recent concerns. This task force was mandated by federal law decades ago, in 1986, as a core component of the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. It was supposed to be a permanent body, a watchdog within the government, tasked with constantly reviewing vaccine safety, advancing safer alternatives, and submitting a formal report to Congress every 2 years. Its purpose was to provide an ongoing, institutionalized focus on safety. But according to a major lawsuit, that legal mandate has been almost completely ignored by a succession of administrations, with the task force either never meeting or existing only on paper for the better part of 3 decades. So why the sudden revival? Why now, after nearly 40 years of what critics call flagrant noncompliance with the law? The catalyst appears to be one thing: the threat of a courtroom defeat. The report reveals that the HHS announcement is inextricably linked to a lawsuit sponsored by Children's Health Defense, the organization founded and chaired by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The lawsuit meticulously laid out the legal argument that the Secretary of Health and Human Services was in direct violation of the 1986 law by failing to establish and maintain the task force as required. The timing is incredibly telling. According to Children's Health Defense, the government's press release announcing the reinstatement of the task force came out just one single day before the legal deadline for the HHS to formally respond to their lawsuit in court. The organization is openly taking a victory lap, framing this not as a voluntary act of transparency by the government, but as a forced concession. In their public statement, they declared, "It took nearly 30 years for HHS to do this, but at last, we have an HHS secretary who is following the law on this vital issue." This sequence of events paints a deeply unflattering picture of our public health institutions, suggesting they may only respond to safety mandates when backed into a legal corner rather than out of a proactive commitment to their congressionally mandated mission. This frantic, reactive maneuver by the HHS is occurring alongside an increasingly muddled and contradictory public relations campaign from top health officials. The article highlights a recent op-ed in the Washington Post, attributed to the director of the National Institutes of Health, NIH, Jay Bhattacharya. In this piece, he attempts to walk a very fine line. On one hand, he lavishes praise on the pandemic response, calling Operation Warp Speed very successful. He champions the mRNA platform as a promising technology that he believes may yet deliver breakthroughs in treating diseases such as cancer. He also makes a point to explicitly deny that mRNA vaccines were responsible for mass harm, attempting to debunk what he considers to be the most extreme claims. But then, in the same article, he makes a series of stunning admissions. He concedes that the scientific establishment still lacks an exact understanding of dosage, biodistribution, and off-target effects of this supposedly promising mRNA technology. This echoes recent German research which found unexpected molecular clutter in heart cells post-vaccination. He also directs sharp criticism at the Biden administration's policies, blaming its strategy of mandates rather than a risk-based approach for eroding public trust and for dismissing the growing concerns from the public about vaccine safety and effectiveness. This is a classic case of trying to have your cake and eat it too. The message is effectively, the technology is a triumph, but we don't fully understand how it works in the body, and the policies used to push it were flawed. This kind of doublespeak does little to build confidence and suggests a leadership that is struggling to control a narrative that is rapidly slipping from its grasp. When you zoom out and look at all of these events together, the pattern becomes undeniable. You have the rigorous Swiss study and the massive Cleveland Clinic data, both pointing towards a potential link between more mRNA doses and higher rates of respiratory illness. You have the former head of the CDC during Operation Warp Speed, Robert Redfield, now publicly questioning the purity and manufacturing standards of the vaccines he helped rush to market. You have official advisory panels to both the CDC and the FDA reportedly connecting the early rollout of mRNA vaccines to a troubling increase in lost pregnancies. You have the federal government, despite its public praise for mRNA, quietly canceling $500 million in contracts for its further development. And now you have the Department of Health and Human Services caught red-handed, allegedly ignoring a key safety law for decades, only to be forced into compliance by a lawsuit from its staunchest critics. These are not isolated incidents. They are cracks appearing in the very foundation of the official pandemic narrative. The united front, the simple slogans of safe and effective, and the top-down certainty of the last few years are being systematically replaced by contentious scientific debate, aggressive legal challenges, and a far more complex and uncomfortable reality for the public to grapple with. So where does this leave us, the public, caught in the middle of this scientific and political crossfire? We are left with peer-reviewed evidence from multiple institutions suggesting that the risk-benefit calculation for COVID boosters, particularly for the young and healthy, may be profoundly different from what we were initially told. We are left watching our public health agencies perform reactive, legally motivated maneuvers on safety rather than leading the charge with transparency. And we are left listening to officials who simultaneously praise the technology while admitting to fundamental gaps in their knowledge of its long-term effects. Is this the beginning of a crucial and long overdue scientific course correction, a moment where difficult questions are finally being asked and answered in the open? Or is it merely the next bitter chapter in an intractable political war over science and individual liberty? Perhaps the only thing we can say for certain is that the era of simple answers is definitively over, and the public's demand for a more honest and thorough conversation about vaccine technology is only going to get louder. We are committed to following every twist and turn of this evolving story and bringing you the unvarnished facts. To ensure you don't miss our next deep dive investigation into these vital health topics, Make sure you are subscribed to the channel and have clicked the notification bell.